The train doors were almost closing when Alicia saw him. An old man sitting alone on a bench, holding his chest as if every breath was a battle. People hurried past him, eyes on their phones, pretending he wasn't there. The speaker crackled above her head, "Final boarding, track 7." But Alicia couldn't move. Her legs felt heavy, her heart torn between her future and a stranger's life. Her job interview was less than an hour away, the one chance she had prayed for, worked for, cried for. Missing that train meant losing everything she'd fought to keep alive. But watching that old man gasping for air, something deep inside her refused to walk away. Rain began to fall, tapping softly against the glass roof of Grand Central Terminal. The lights reflected off the wet floor as people rushed past, boots splashing through puddles, the sound of the train's whistle cutting through the noise. Alicia's hand shook. Her resume slipped from her grip and hit the floor. She looked at the train doors, her hope, her escape, then at the old man, whose lips were turning pale. She had 10 seconds to decide. 10 seconds between saving her dream or saving a life. The old man looked at her, his voice weak and trembling. "Please, help me." That was it. Alicia dropped her bag and ran to him. "Sir, stay with me." "Please," she said, kneeling beside him as the train pulled away, the sound fading into the rain. Her dream was gone, but his life might not be. What Alicia didn't know was that the choice she made that rainy afternoon would change everything: her future, her brother's future, and even the heart of a powerful company she'd only dreamed of joining. She thought she was saving a stranger, but that stranger was about to rewrite her entire life story. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Rain poured over New York like it was washing the city clean. Sirens echoed in the distance. Alicia Morgan knelt beside the old man on the bench, her hands shaking as she held his wrist, searching for a pulse. "Sir, can you hear me?" "Stay with me, please," she said softly. His breathing was weak, his hand clutching her arm like a child holding on to safety. Someone nearby shouted, "Call 911," but no one moved. Everyone just kept walking, hurrying to catch their trains. Alicia grabbed her phone with trembling fingers. "Yes, this is Grand Central Terminal," she said breathlessly. "There's an old man here, he's having chest pain. Please hurry." The dispatcher asked for details, but Alicia could barely focus. The man's skin was cold, his lips almost colorless. "Sir, what's your name?" she whispered. His eyes flickered. "Harold." "Benton," he murmured. Then his voice faded. "Stay with me, Mr. Benton," she said desperately. "Help is coming." The sound of the departing train cut through her heart like a knife. That was her train, the one that was supposed to take her to Liberty Square, to the interview that could change everything. She could almost hear her brother's voice in her head. "You've got this, Alicia." But right now, she didn't feel like she had anything. Minutes felt like hours before the flashing red lights appeared at the far end of the platform. 2 paramedics rushed toward them with a stretcher. "Step back, ma'am," one said firmly, but not unkindly. "What happened?" "He couldn't breathe," Alicia said quickly. "He just collapsed." The older paramedic checked Harold's pulse and gave a small nod. "He's lucky you stopped. Most people wouldn't have." Alicia didn't reply. She just stared at the wet floor where her resume folder still lay, pages soaked and unreadable. Her entire future was sitting in that folder. As the paramedics lifted Harold onto the stretcher, he gripped her hand again, weak but insistent. His eyes met hers, filled with fear. "Don't leave me," he whispered. Alicia hesitated. "Can I go with him?" she asked the paramedic. "Are you family?" "No, but he doesn't have anyone else here." The woman nodded. "Come on, then." Alicia climbed into the ambulance, still shaking. As the doors closed, she glanced once more through the small window. The train she was supposed to be on had already disappeared into the tunnel. Her dream job gone. The ambulance sped through the wet streets, lights flashing, sirens screaming through traffic. Alicia held Harold's hand as the paramedic placed an oxygen mask over his face. He looked fragile now, almost peaceful, under the soft red glow of the emergency lights. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. "Just hold on." He didn't answer, but his fingers tightened around hers, like he'd heard. Inside, Alicia's thoughts raced. What will I tell Jaden? She wondered. Her little brother was waiting at home, believing this interview would fix their lives. She could already see the disappointment in his face when she told him she didn't make it. But she couldn't regret stopping. Not when she saw how scared Harold looked. Not when she knew she might be the only person who cared enough to stay. When they reached New York General Hospital, the paramedics rushed Harold inside. Alicia followed, still soaked from the rain. The nurses took over, surrounding his stretcher with machines and cables. One nurse told her to wait outside, so she sat in a hard plastic chair, the kind that squeaked when you moved. Her hands were trembling. Her heart felt heavy. She looked down at her self-wet hair, wrinkled clothes, smudged makeup. She had prepared for weeks for that interview. Practiced every answer, borrowed a blazer from Mrs. Green, even skipped dinner last night so she could afford a train ticket. And now, it was all gone. She leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes, fighting back tears. Her phone buzzed. It was Jaden. "How did it go?" the message read. Alicia stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to lie, to say it went great, just to make him smile, but she couldn't. Instead, she typed, "I'll tell you when I get home." A few minutes later, a doctor walked out of the emergency room. "Are you here with Mr. Benton?" Alicia stood up quickly. "Yes. Is he okay?" "He's stable now," the doctor said with a tired smile. "He had a mild heart attack, but got here just in time. Your call probably saved his life." Relief washed over her like warm sunlight. "Can I see him?" The doctor nodded. Only for a minute. Inside the room, Harold was lying quietly, a thin blanket covering his chest. His color was better. When he opened his eyes and saw her, he smiled weakly. "You stayed," he said softly. "Of course I did." He looked at her closely, as if trying to remember her face. "What's your name, Alicia?" "Alicia? Alicia Morgan." "Thank you, Alicia," he whispered. "You could have walked away, but you didn't." She gave a small smile. Anyone would have done the same. Harold shook his head slowly. "No, not everyone stops." Before she could answer, a nurse entered. "We need to run a few more tests. You'll have to wait outside." Alicia nodded and stepped out. She walked down the corridor, past the glowing hospital signs and the hum of machines, until she found a quiet corner near the window. The city lights shone through the rain like tiny stars. She leaned her forehead against the cold glass, whispering to herself, "Maybe I lost my chance today. But at least someone else got theirs." Outside, the rain was still falling. Inside, somewhere behind those walls, a man she barely knew was fighting his way back to life. And though she didn't realize it yet, that single act of kindness had already started something far bigger than she could imagine. Because in saving him, Alicia had just changed the course of both their lives forever. The morning light filtered weakly through the hospital blinds. Alicia sat half asleep on the chair outside the room, her hands still cold from the night air. Nurses passed by with trays and clipboards, but she didn't move. She had been there all night, waiting for the old man she'd found on that bench to wake up again. When she finally heard his voice, it startled her. "You're still here?" he asked softly. Alicia stood and walked to his bedside. Harold Benton looked much better now. His breathing was steady, his skin had regained its color, and there was a calmness in his eyes that wasn't there before. "I couldn't leave," she said gently. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." Harold gave a small, tired smile. Most people would have been gone hours ago. Alicia shrugged. "You looked like you needed someone." He chuckled quietly. "You sound like my wife used to." Then he paused, his eyes distant. "She passed away 3 years ago. Since then, I don't think anyone's waited on me for anything except meetings." "I'm sorry," Alicia said softly. Harold studied her for a moment. "What about you, Alicia? You look too young to be sitting in hospitals for old men like me." She smiled faintly. "I had a job interview yesterday. I missed it because of you." His expression shifted, guilt flashing across his face. "Oh, dear. I didn't mean to cause you that kind of trouble." "It's okay," she said quickly. "You were more important." Harold looked away, almost embarrassed by her kindness. "Where was this interview, if you don't mind me asking?" "Benton Systems," she replied without thinking. "I was supposed to be there by 3. Harold blinked. "Benton Systems?" "Yes. It's one of those big companies in Midtown. They have a building near Liberty Square. I've walked past it so many times I could draw it from memory." The room fell silent. Harold's lips curved into a small smile that she didn't quite understand. "You said Benton Systems?" "Yes," she said again. "Do you know them?" He hesitated. "You could say that." Before Alicia could ask what he meant, the door opened. A tall man in a dark gray suit entered, looking both worried and relieved. His voice carried authority, but also warmth. "Dad, thank God you're okay." "Ethan," Harold said with a smile. "I'm fine now, thanks to this young woman." Ethan turned to Alicia, surprise flickering across his face. "You were the one who helped my father?" Alicia nodded. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Ethan said firmly. "You did what most people wouldn't." As the two men spoke, Alicia noticed the resemblance, the same eyes, the same confidence in the way they stood. They weren't ordinary people. There was something powerful about them, something that made her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from realization. Harold's gaze softened. "Alicia, I believe you've already met our company, at least in name." She frowned, confused. "Your company?" "Yes," Ethan said gently. "Our family runs Benton Technologies. Benton Systems is one of our divisions." Alicia froze. For a moment, she thought she'd misheard him. "Wait, Benton Technologies? The one with the tall glass tower in Midtown?" Ethan nodded. "That's the one." Alicia's mouth went dry. Her mind raced back to every time she'd walked past that building on her way to her cleaning job, wondering what it would feel like to belong inside instead of scrubbing its floors. "You mean," she whispered, looking at Harold, "you're the Benton in Benton Technologies?" He nodded slowly, a faint smile on his lips. "I founded the company 50 years ago. These days, I just show up to cause trouble for my son." Alicia took a small step back, trying to process it. She had missed the interview of her life to save the man who owned the company she was trying to work for. Her throat tightened. I had no idea," she said. "Of course you didn't," Harold said kindly. "That's what makes what you did so extraordinary. You didn't stop because of who I was. You stopped because it was right. Ethan crossed his arms, still studying her. Dad, do you realize what this means? If she hadn't been there, I know, Harold interrupted softly. I might not be here at all. Alicia tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't want to show. I really didn't mean to cause any trouble, she said quietly. Trouble? Harold repeated, smiling. You saved my life. That's not trouble, Alicia. That's grace. He reached toward the small table beside him and took a sleek silver card from his wallet. Here, he said, handing it to her. Alicia hesitated. What's this? My card, Harold replied. Just in case you ever need anything. She shook her head. I can't take that. I didn't help you because I wanted something back. I know, Harold said gently. But take it anyway. Sometimes life opens doors when you least expect it. Alicia looked down at the card. It was heavy, engraved with his name, Harold Benton, Chairman Emeritus, Benton Technologies. It looked too important, too expensive for her hands. Before she could say more, a nurse entered with paperwork for Harold to sign. Ethan turned to her and said, We'll have someone drive you home. It's the least we can do. Alicia nodded, still in a daze. Thank you, she whispered. As she walked toward the elevator, she turned back one last time. Harold was watching her through the window, his expression thoughtful. He gave her a small nod, as if sealing a silent promise. The ride home was quiet. The city outside looked different now, brighter, sharper, but also heavier. She couldn't stop replaying what had just happened. When she got home, Jaden was sitting at the kitchen table, books spread out, like always. Hey, sis! How was it? Did you get the job? Alicia swallowed hard. I didn't make it to the interview. What happened? There was an emergency, an old man at the station. He collapsed. I stayed with him. Jaden frowned. You missed your one chance for that? She nodded slowly. Yeah. But he's okay now. He sighed, rubbing his face. You always care too much. Alicia smiled weakly. Maybe. But I couldn't just walk away. Later that night, as she emptied her purse, the silver card fell onto the table. She picked it up, staring at the engraved name again, Harold Benton. She had no idea that card would soon become the key to a life she'd never imagined possible, because Harold Benton wasn't done with her yet. The next morning came quietly. The city was still half asleep, the sky gray with leftover rain. Alicia sat at the kitchen table staring at Harold Benton's business card. The silver letters gleamed softly in the early light Chairman Emeritus, Benton Technologies. She traced her finger over the words like they might disappear if she blinked. Had she really saved him? The same man whose name was printed across half of Manhattan? Jaden walked in, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. You're up early, he said. Yeah, Alicia murmured. Couldn't sleep. He poured a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. You still thinking about yesterday? Alicia nodded. You have no idea. I was supposed to be at that company for my interview, and the man I stopped to help owns it. Jaden's jaw dropped. Wait, what? You mean the same Benton Systems? She nodded again, almost in disbelief. Yeah. I met the founder himself. Jaden let out a soft laugh. Sis, that's wild. Maybe it's fate or something. Maybe, she said quietly, staring at the card again. Her phone suddenly buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Hello? Hello? Is this Alicia Morgan? The voice was polite, professional, a woman's voice. Yes, speaking. This is Hannah Reed from Benton Systems. We received notice about your missed interview yesterday. Our team has decided to reschedule you for this afternoon at 2 p.m. if you're available." Alicia blinked, stunned. "You want me to come in? Today?" "Yes," Hannah said. "Same address, 1247 Liberty Square. Please bring your resume." Yes, of course. Thank you so much." When the call ended, Alicia just sat there in silence. Jaden raised an eyebrow. "Was that them?" She nodded slowly. "They're giving me another chance." He grinned. "See? Maybe kindness really does come back." Alicia smiled faintly, though her heart still raced. Somewhere deep inside, she had a feeling Harold Benton had something to do with this. By 1:30 a.m., Alicia stood in front of Benton Tower, a building she'd walked past hundreds of times, always from the outside. Now, for the first time, she was going in. The lobby took her breath away. Marble floors reflected the glow of golden lights. A massive portrait hung on the wall behind the front desk, an older man with silver hair and kind eyes. She stopped in front of it. The nameplate read, "Harold Benton Founder, 1972. Her chest tightened. It was him. "Miss Morgan?" a voice called. Alicia turned to see Hannah Reed, the HR manager, walking toward her with a warm smile. "I'm glad you could make it." "Thank you for having me," Alicia said, trying to steady her nerves. "Right this way, please. Someone has requested to meet you personally." Alicia frowned. "Someone?" Hannah smiled mysteriously. "You'll see." They entered an elevator that climbed smoothly to the 15th floor. The doors opened to a hallway lined with glass walls and city views stretching miles beyond. Hannah led her to a large wooden door at the end. She opened it, and Alicia froze. Inside, behind an enormous mahogany desk, sat Harold Benton, alive, healthy, and dressed in a dark blue suit. His son Ethan stood beside him, arms crossed and smiling faintly. Harold's face lit up when he saw her. "There's my guardian angel." Alicia blinked in disbelief. "Mr. Benton?" Hannah looked surprised. "You two know each other?" "Yes," Harold said with a chuckle. "You could say she saved my life." Hannah's eyes widened. "Oh my goodness, you're that Alicia Morgan?" Harold waved his hand gently. "It's all right, Hannah. Thank you for bringing her. I'll take it from here." When the door closed, the room grew quiet. Alicia stood awkwardly, unsure what to say. Harold motioned for her to sit. "Please, come closer. We have a lot to talk about." She sat across from him, still trying to understand how she'd ended up here. "Yesterday," Harold began, "I was supposed to attend a meeting about one of the biggest deals in our company's history, but instead, I collapsed on a bench and a young woman I'd never met decided that my life was worth more than her own opportunity." Alicia looked down. "I just did what I thought was right," he smiled. "And that's exactly why you're sitting here." Ethan stepped forward, handing his father a folder. Harold opened it slowly and looked at her. "Alicia, I've learned many lessons in 50 years of business, but none as important as this. Character cannot be bought, and kindness cannot be faked." Alicia's chest grew tight. "Sir, I appreciate this, but I really don't expect anything." Harold raised his hand gently. "I know. That's why I want to do something for you." He glanced at Ethan, then back at her. "I'm not offering you the receptionist job you applied for." Alicia's heart sank. "Oh," she said softly. "I understand. I'm offering you something better," Harold continued. "I want you to work directly with me as my executive assistant. You'll help manage our community projects, events, and outreach programs. The salary will start at $85,000 a year with full benefits. Alicia's mouth opened slightly. 85,000? Ethan nodded. And there's more. My father mentioned your brother, Jaden. We'd like to offer him a full scholarship through the Benton Foundation 4 years at Hudson University, plus graduate studies if he chooses. Alicia felt tears rise in her eyes. I don't know what to say. Harold smiled kindly. Just say yes. She covered her face with her hands, trying to stop the tears. I can't believe this. Yesterday, I thought my life was over. I lost my one chance, and now, Harold said gently, you've been given a new one. Because you showed me something I forgot long ago, what it means to care without expecting anything in return. He stood and walked around the desk, placing a hand on her shoulder. You saved my life, Alicia. Let me help change yours. Alicia stood slowly, her legs trembling. She nodded, tears running freely now. Yes, she whispered. I'll do it. Harold smiled. Good. Then, welcome to Benton Technologies. Ethan grinned and extended his hand. Congratulations, Alicia. As they shook hands, she looked through the glass window at the city below, a city that had always felt too big for someone like her. But not anymore. For the first time in her life, Alicia Morgan felt seen. What she didn't know was that this was just the beginning, because the changes her kindness would bring were far bigger than she could imagine. 6 months later, everything about Alicia's life looked different. The small apartment on Maple Street was gone. She and Jaden now lived in a 2-bedroom flat in a quiet Brooklyn neighborhood. The walls were no longer peeling, the air no longer heavy with worry. Jaden had started his first semester at Hudson University, smiling in ways she hadn't seen since their parents passed. Every morning, Alicia dressed in soft navy blazers and crisp shirts, clothes that once belonged only in her dreams. She carried a company ID badge that read Alicia Morgan, Executive Assistant, Benton Technologies. Sometimes she'd pause in front of the mirror just to whisper to herself, "This is real." At Benton Tower, things had changed, too. Harold Benton came to the office every few days, not as the distant chairman, but as a man with a new purpose. Together, he and Alicia had started something that would soon shake the business world. They called it the Kindness First Initiative. The idea was simple: treat people like human beings first, employees second. Under Alicia's guidance, the company funded college scholarships, started job training for low-income families, and allowed workers to be late without punishment if they were helping someone in need. At first, some executives doubted it. But within months, Benton Technologies became known not just for its success, but for its heart. On a bright Monday morning, Alicia walked into Harold's office, holding a report. "Morning, Mr. Benton," she said cheerfully. He looked up from his desk and smiled. "Alicia, how many times have I told you? Call me Harold." She laughed. "At least 100. He leaned back. "And have you learned yet?" "Not really." They both laughed. The bond between them had grown deep, part friendship, part mentorship. Harold often said she reminded him of himself when he was young, full of hope, full of purpose. "What's the report say?" he asked. Alicia handed it over. "The numbers are better than we expected. In 6 months, we've helped 840 families, given out 50 full scholarships, and trained over 200 people for new jobs." Harold whistled softly. "That's incredible." "You've built something real here, Alicia." She smiled proudly. "We built it together." The story of the young woman who missed her train to save a stranger had gone viral months earlier. Metro News had covered it, calling her the woman who changed corporate America. But Alicia never let the fame get to her. To her, it was never about attention. It was about meaning. As the company grew, so did her confidence. She spoke at charity dinners, visited schools, and often told students, "Your kindness is your power. Never let this world harden you." One evening, as the sun set behind Benton Tower, Harold joined her at the window. "You know, Alicia," he said quietly, "I used to think success was about money. But watching you work, I realized it's about impact." Alicia turned to him with a gentle smile. "You gave me a chance, Harold. All I did was pay it forward." He nodded. "Then keep doing that. The world needs more of it." 2 years later, life had come full circle. Grand Central Terminal was just as busy as the day everything changed. The same echo of footsteps, the same sound of trains rushing through tunnels. But this time, Alicia wasn't running to catch her train out of desperation. She was on her way to speak at a youth program, sharing her story to inspire others. She checked her watch, 3:10 p.m. The train would leave in 10 minutes. She hurried toward the platform, her bag on her shoulder. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw something that made her stop. An old man sat hunched on a bench, not Harold, but someone else. His hands shook as he clutched a small brown envelope. Tears rolled down his wrinkled face. Alicia hesitated. The memory hit her like lightning rain, the whistle, Harold's trembling hand. "Sir?" she called softly. The man looked up, his voice weak. "I'm trying to find the graduation hall," he said in a heavy accent. "My granddaughter, she graduates today. First in our family to finish college. But I think I'm lost." Alicia's eyes fell on the envelope. The address said Hudson University Nursing School. Her heart skipped. "What's her name?" she asked gently. "Sofia Vega," he said. Alicia froze. She remembered that name, Sofia Vega. A bright young woman who'd received one of the first Kindness First scholarships. The granddaughter of Antonio Vega, a janitor who had written a thank you letter that made Alicia cry the day she read it. She smiled warmly. "Sir, I know your granddaughter. Come with me. I'll take you there." He blinked in surprise. "You know my Sophia?" "Yes," she said softly. "And you're not missing that graduation." Without another thought, Alicia canceled her meeting and helped him to his feet. They caught a cab together to Hudson University. During the ride, Antonio told her how proud he was, how Sophia had studied day and night to become a nurse. When they arrived, Alicia didn't just drop him off, she stayed. She sat beside him in the crowded auditorium, watching as Sophia walked across the stage in her cap and gown. Antonio's hands trembled as he clapped, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you," he whispered to Alicia. "Not just for today, but for what you did 2 years ago. Without that program, my Sophia wouldn't be here." Alicia squeezed his hand, her eyes wet. "You don't owe me anything, sir. I just passed on what someone once gave me a chance." As the ceremony ended, Sophia spotted them and ran over, hugging both of them tightly. "Ms. Morgan, you came," she said, smiling through tears. Alicia laughed softly. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." That night, on her way home, she passed through Grand Central again. The same bench, the same lights, the same echo of trains. She stopped for a moment, remembering that rainy afternoon the day she lost everything and somehow gained the world. Her phone buzzed. A message from Harold. "Heard what you did today. Some things never change, and thank God for that." Alicia smiled. She looked around the busy station, people rushing, some helping, some ignoring. She whispered quietly to herself, "Kindness is contagious." Then she walked toward the exit, the glow of the city lights, waiting for her outside. because that's how it all began, one small act of kindness that changed not just her life, but thousands of others. And in that moment, Alicia Morgan knew the truth. Sometimes the train you miss isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of the story you were meant to live. Dear viewers, sometimes the train you miss isn't a mistake, it's a message. Alicia missed hers that day, but in choosing kindness over success, she changed not just one life, but thousands. What seemed like a loss became the start of her miracle. This story reminds us that every good act finds its way back. Because when you lead with kindness, life always finds a way to reward you. Read if this story touched your heart. Don't just scroll, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs hope today. And tell us in the comments, what's one act of kindness you'll never forget? Speech balloon.